You're listening to the Confident Creative Podcast. I'm your host, Carrie Gavin, former professional photographer turned professional encourager. I'm an intuitive life and business mentor focused on strengthening courage and confidence for heart-centered creatives. These heart-centered creatives desire to make an impact and an income through sharing their heart with the world. This podcast is dedicated to helping us creatives activate more courage within ourselves so we can experience more memories, achieve more milestones, and make more money. In addition to empowering stories, this show will also include practical, actionable strategies from thought leaders, influencers, impact makers, and my own personal experience. If you are passionate about the areas of intentionally living, prioritizing passion, choosing courage, as well as some soulful business strategy, spirituality, and some self-mastery, you, my friend, are in the right place. You ready to play? Hey, friends. So happy to share this conversation with you with one of my favorite mentors ever, Melanie Ann Layer. She is one of the most influential people I've ever worked with. And she's really just had such an incredible impact on all areas of my life, both personal and professional, with my relationships and also my business and all the things. Her story starts out when she was living in her car. She filed for bankruptcy, and now she's incredibly successful and wealthy. She actually just crossed the $2 million mark in the last 2 years of her business. And she is just an incredible human. She is location independent, and she's focused on high performance lifestyle and luxury brand coaching. And her heart is just so beautiful. And the way that she really shows up in a way of authenticity and being open-hearted and connected is just it's so beautiful. And it's such an inspiring place to learn from. So all of her programs are based around helping women lead themselves so that they can lead others. And in this episode, we dive into how emotional intelligence really is the key to our personal freedom, and how the little moments, both the big and small, they're all leading to a story that's, so much bigger than us so that we can inspire others. We talk about how circumstances can keep us trapped and how to navigate through that, and just so many more amazing things. She is such a beautiful human. I love her to pieces. I want everyone to work with her. I will put her information in the show notes, of course, but I think you're really going to love this episode. So just wanted to give a little background and let you know a little bit about her, because I think you should go follow her and go get connected with her and tell her I sent you, because she is incredible. So without further ado, let's get started. I am so excited to welcome Melanie Ann Layer to the podcast today. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
You are absolutely welcome to be here anytime. So thank you for starting this off with us. And I'm so excited. I actually was thinking about how I wanted to introduce you and all the things I wanted to share, because you're like one of my favorite humans on the planet. But I really feel like the best description comes from your heart. So I would love for you to share with us what your magic is in the world and what we need to know about you.
Oh my gosh. Well, one thing that I do believe is that it's basically impossible to describe ourselves in a few sentences like that. So what I would probably say is that during the podcast, people are going to become really clear on who I am and what I do, because the most basic explanation of it is I am a coach, and I work with women who want to become leaders in the world and who want to make an incredible impact in their lives, their relationships, their families, their business, their money. Like, they want a fulfilled life where everything works. They work with me to achieve those things. And I just hold space and lead by example so they can do that. So that's like the simple version of what I do. And I think it'll become clear as we dive into the questions and the angle of the podcast.
I love it so much. And that is actually perfect for what I was hoping you would say, because I am very anti the sort of elevator pitch mentality. And the reason I asked you that, knowing that, so for those of you that don't know, I have been in Melanie's circle for a little less than a year. She's my mentor, and I just love everything she stands for. But that was a specific question for you, because I think, especially in the creative world, it's really difficult to summarize, quote unquote, who we are and what we do. And I really love how you push back against that as well. It was one of the first things I noticed about you is that we're not here to fit in a box. And I love that the way that you bring that to light is a loving and compassionate way, but it's also a way of what I call being a heart-centered rebel, of saying like, nope, that's not for me. I'm not going to do that.
I love that. The heart-centered rebel. So good.
Yeah, so that's really the perfect place to start. So like I said, you've been in my world. I think I found you last December, so a little less than a year. And the thing that I really want to highlight is that so much of your work is rooted around who you're being and the energy you bring to the table and bring into the room before you even step into the room. And I think the beautiful example and experience I had with you was exactly that. So for me, connection is everything. It always has been. And I think we messaged in Messenger for like maybe 2 minutes. And I was like, I love this woman. She's like my favorite, because I really felt that your energy was just so aligned because you were in integrity and in alignment with who you are for yourself. And that was something that really came through strong and clear for me, is that I could feel your confidence in just being you. And I don't know if that's something that you even tap into or you're even aware of, but it's so crystal clear from an energetic perspective on the receiving end. It's just such a beautiful, warm welcome. And it feels like, oh yeah, I remember you. Like, I know you. This is so fun. So I just want to honor. Yeah, I just want to honor the way that you really welcome people into your world in a way that feels connected. And I don't even know that you know you're doing it, I guess. And I think that's the most beautiful way to do it. So thank you.
Well, that is amazing. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it was really the thing that connected to me to you. And I knew the other thing is that you were the first. I had my own photography business for 14 years, and I moved into the coaching world about 4 years ago, and you blew me away in the sense that you are the first real mentor I've had that has had the sort of rebellious business approach and done it in a way that's in alignment for you and created that success. So for me, it was a really beautiful thing to witness you. Well, I'd love for you to share. How did you decide that the way you were going to go about your business was the way that you wanted to do it, as opposed to what everybody else was saying?
So I actually think I got lucky, to be honest, because when I first started in the coaching world, I didn't actually know what a coach was. I knew that Tony Robbins existed. I knew like authors and speakers, but I wasn't really aware that there was a universe where people could just be coaches. I didn't know that existed. So I had been really diving deep into reading books and listening to seminars. And I had a friend of mine say, you should be a coach. After I had given her advice on a certain thing, she's like, you should be a coach. And I was like, what is that? And she's like, like a therapist, like a coach. And I was like, I've never heard of this before. And I did not graduate high school. So the first thought in my head is I can't be that. And she said, it doesn't require any qualifications except for the ability to truly get results for people.
I love that.
And I went online and I looked like, what is a coach? And when I finally found what it was, it blew me away. Like I read up even what people were allowed to charge as coaches. I was like, what is this world? And I knew that there were certain areas that I could help people because it really created a significant change in my life. And I understood how I'd done it. And I really strongly felt if I had people in my world that wanted to change and were willing to listen to what I knew, that I could help them change, because if I could do it, they could do it. And it was that simple. Since I had struggled and it was hard for me to change, and I still had, if I could do it, they could do it. So what happened is I didn't really have a model or an example of how I should do it, because I didn't even know of anybody who did. I just kind of invented my own way.
I love it.
And what happened in inventing my own way is that I just found myself really early. Like, what did it mean for me to coach people? What did I really want to experience as their coach? Who did I want to coach? What did I want it to feel like? What did I want it to feel like for them? And along my journey, a few times I went to try to hire mentors. And every time they were obviously different than me because they chose a different path, or they were taught by someone how to do it. And I always felt there was such a huge piece missing. And it was this human piece. I just felt there was a human piece missing behind all the strategy and the
Yes.
need to look perfect and the need to have everything organized. I just really wanted someone who was going to care as much about my success than I did, like the way I did for my clients. And I found it very hard because I found a lot of coaches were so worried about being good enough that they actually didn't have space to care about their clients the way that I wanted to be cared about. So for the longest time, I was actually looking for what was missing in the industry to base my coaching on. Every time I reached out to a coach looking for something and it didn't get what I needed, it became an example of what more to add in my world.
That
And I did that for the longest time until I became in energetic alignment with higher end coaches who had what I was looking for. And then, was able to kind of start working with people who kind of have that magic that I was looking for. But in the beginning, I just basically created it from my own mind and filled in the blanks with what I was missing until I had created something that I knew was unique because I couldn't find it anywhere.
that is like, that sums up how and why I feel so connected to you because that is exactly what I did with my photography business. And exactly like you, like I didn't know the coaching world was a thing. I just had other creatives coming to me about 5 years into my business saying, how did you do this? How did you have the courage to start a business? And how do you know how to have a business? And for me, it was just all self-taught, like reading books and go to seminars and, so much like you, I didn't know. But the piece where I went on a different path was as soon as I did discover the coaching industry, I actually decided everybody else must know more than me. So I just started investing. And I am very much of the mindset that we combine the science of the brain with the intuition of the heart. That's what I tell my clients. And so I was coming at it from a very, like, I thought everybody that had these like masculine energy approaches was like, that's how you had to do it. And it was a different industry and I didn't know. And I totally gave my power away until I found you. And then I was like, oh my gosh, yes, this is exactly like you put into words exactly how I created my success in photography, but I didn't know. And it was going my own way and filling in the gaps and doing it in a way that is very human connection based. And so when I discovered you, I really did feel like I put an oxygen mask on, maybe similar to the way you felt when you found your mentors, where it was like, yes, this is possible. I'm not crazy. I can follow in their footsteps and see what they did in a way that's in alignment for me, but it didn't have to feel so heavy, right? Like
that's a big piece of it. And I think another important part of this whole journey is also the fact that when I work with people now, I'm very much in the energetics of things. Like you'll very rarely hear me speak about strategy. And when I ever do speak about strategy, I'm just pulling the curtain back and sharing, here's what I did. Never here's what you should do, more just here's what I did. Because I know a lot of people are curious what my way is, even though what I do share and what I really help people do is to find their own way. Because I feel every person in the world learns differently. So the more teachers are holding space for different teaching methods, the better the world's going to rise, because we need different ways of teaching always. Different people have different voices. So working with me is like learning how to find your voice instead of being like mine. Although I do pull the curtain back sometimes and I'm like, here's how I do it and here's why I do it the way I do it. And I know that a lot of people resonate with the way that I do it, but it's never explained in a way where if you don't do it this way, you're going to fail. I'm much more interested in finding out what other people's authentic ways are and helping them tap into that. For me, that's the magic.
100%. And me too. That's why it feels so fun to learn from you, because I'm like, yes, see, this is possible. So in that sort of that lens, I'd love for you to share with us. I mean, I know your story and I think it's incredible. And if you're open to it, I'd love for you to sort of give people a little bit of like a Cliff Notes version of how you ended up getting here and really strengthening your courage muscle through the sort of dark night of the soul that brought you into the light.
So it's so interesting because I've told this story so many times now, and every time I tell it, there's little pieces that come back to me that I've forgotten, or that for some reason on that day, one piece matters more than another piece. And what I've come to realize is that our story comes together in a million moments, and it's told in one thread. But it's so many different tiny little pieces, little decisions, little nights, little thoughts, little ways that all came together, and then one day becomes this like story that holds together. But my story is not just one story. My story is many days, nights, and moments where I had to sit and think and make decisions that ultimately change things over time. It always makes me feel so, it's always so funny to look back and tell it like a one thread, when in fact it was so many tiny little moments. I just kind of wanted to say that. But
Of course.
my life has always been this like up and down kind of thing until I really found myself. I was always either in this incredible, magical, things are looking up kind of vibe, or in like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Things are awful kind of vibe. It's like I was riding the wave of circumstances. Is probably the best way to explain it. And even in my family, this is what things were like. When I was little, like really, really, really little, when I was first born, my parents had no money. My dad worked 3 jobs in order to make it that my mom and I were good and my mom could stay at home with me and take care of me. But although we had no money, I was so loved. And my mom's so fun and so just kind and so amazing with kids. And she would make me like forts out of cardboard boxes in the living room. And we would play with my dolls in the cardboard boxes in the living room. And then when we started making more money, my dad started as a network marketer. Actually, he was selling filter queens, like what's it called in English? I'm thinking French Canadian in my head. I can't think of the word. When you're cleaning the floor and it's got a motor, what's that called? A vacuum cleaner.
A vacuum.
Okay. So he would sell vacuum cleaners and became actually really successful at this. So growing up a little more, then we had money, and my dad used to take me skiing, and we used to go to fancy places, and my mom used to dress me up like a doll with little white gloves on and hats and little white shoes and little dresses, and like I was so fancy. And I went through that whole thing. And then my brother and sister came along. My parents went through a bankruptcy. And I'll never forget the first time my dad came to me and asked me if I could give him some money because he couldn't put gas in the truck to go to work. And I couldn't compute it in my mind because it meant we were in trouble. Like for the first time in my life, I felt not safe. But what it did is it created this entrepreneurial spirit inside of me, because I actually started my first business when I was 12 years old. I started a business where it was a private school that we would go to, and I would help kids do their homework, finish their homework, and learn English before their parents came and picked them up. And the parents would pay me per night per kid. And I started this huge business. I was able to help my parents out of a bankruptcy. I was 12 years old. But then when my parents got out of that bankruptcy, I felt kind of bitter and resentful because they didn't really give me the significance I had hoped would come from helping that way. So it kind of rebelled against them and kind of fell into this dark place where I just felt really angry and resentful, and didn't want to go to school and didn't want to follow the rules and wanted to just do what I wanted to do, and felt very emotional and very entitled, and broke a lot of things in my relationship, like with my family, just very bitter and upset, and transitioned into leaving high school, dropping out of high school and getting a job in a store and being a manager in a clothing store, and moving in with the wrong guy who like had no money, and we're struggling, and it was just a struggle. My life was just a struggle. I remember having $1,000 visa I couldn't pay off, and being behind on rent, and my phone getting shut off, and it like just making all the wrong decisions about money. And then I found another job that I felt that was really good at, and I was all in sales, 100% commission, and doing like live infomercials like on QVC, but live in stores. And became really successful at that. At a point, I was making like $1,000. I could make up to $1,000 a day doing this work when I was good at it, and it was a good store. And just feeling on top of the world with that, but no intelligence around money whatsoever. Just spent the whole thing. There was nothing left at the end of the year, and just running after my money constantly, and just met this other guy that was again the wrong guy. No emotional intelligence, no staying power. Cheating on me, lying to me, unable to leave the relationship. And it took me to the end of my rope. This is where I really went from, I thought I had gotten something good together, but I had no purpose in this work. It was just me selling things. Like it didn't mean anything. Sure. And I'd helped this guy, become the manager, trying to help him out, trying to help everybody out. That was my MO, like making everybody else good, helping my parents out of a bankruptcy, helping the guys, the boyfriends get better jobs, helping the friends get the things, and being the helper, the mothering forward energy, trying to make everybody else good, and then feeling bitter and resentful when it didn't come back and feel the way I wanted it to. And the whole thing imploded. One day I just had enough of that relationship. I felt disempowered and not appreciated, and it just felt really clear it was not the right relationship after 7 years together. When I broke up with him, he fired me from my job, and I had to go work like miles away from my home. I was not allowed to be in his jurisdiction anymore, and I literally just went bankrupt. I lost everything. It wasn't long before I didn't have money to pay for my hotel room, and I was sleeping in my car in the parking lot of a Canadian Tire, completely alone, still at odds with my family. Just everything broke. The relationship, the money, the friendship. Like there was just nothing. I'd brought myself to the end, and it felt like such a fake life that I'd had. And I was so disappointed with myself sitting in this car, just thinking about how really I had built nothing. I was 25 years old. I had nothing to show for it. There was nothing real or tangible. And what I feel I experienced now, looking back in hindsight, is I was given like a fake end of life. Because
Wow.
I had some really dark thoughts, and I really thought to myself, I could die freezing in this car. No one would notice. No one would know for days if I went missing. Like I just didn't matter. And one night I don't know why the universe put this on my path, but in the darkest times of my life where I was contemplating awful things and having terrible thoughts, a woman took her life in front of me. And it shook me so intensely, because it made me realize that that's not what I wanted. I wasn't done, first of all, but it gave me this second chance at my own life.
Wow.
It just brought me to the awareness that if that was the end for me, I would have done nothing. There was no one I was leaving behind. There was nothing I was leaving behind. I had done nothing with my life.
Wow.
And I think a lot of people go through their entire life fearing what could go wrong. And it was a blessing and a curse at the same time, but I ended up standing right in the middle of the worst thing that could possibly happen.
Mm-hmm.
And when I survived that, it gave me the kind of courage that's the courage that fueled everything else for me. It's the kind of courage where I know no matter what happens, I'll be okay. And it's the courage I try to help my clients tap into, because I feel now in hindsight, I did the easiest thing. I learned to run fast with a wolf chasing me.
Mm-hmm. I know that feeling.
What I teach my clients to do is to run just as fast without the wolf.
That's amazing.
How do you get that fire? How do you feel that purpose? How do you run like your life depends on it without having to put yourself in a situation where your life actually depends on it? How do you go from good to great instead of having to hit rock bottom and be faced with, if I don't run, I'm going to die here?
So I think
yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, it's okay. Tell me.
I was just going to say that I think the thing that is so heartbreaking and amazing about that story is it's such a beautiful gift where you were in that moment, but I think what I love about that when you tell it is that you had the awareness that this was a gift, right? Like even in your darkest hour, even in this moment where you were like, this is both devastating and also I have a choice. Like, do you think that, like, sometimes I think we can be in experiences like that, but we don't necessarily have the awareness. And do you think, I think there's a sort of double conversation in it where sometimes there's like, we have to get to rock bottom to get the awakening, I guess. But what I love about what this experience has done for you, at least in my perspective, is that it's shown you that you can help people do exactly what you just said, that you don't have to get to rock bottom and you can learn from my story. But do you think that there are some people that sort of do get to rock bottom because that's the only way they can access that awareness?
So I really don't think that hitting rock bottom is the only way that you can get to the awareness, but I know that hitting rock bottom will get you there.
Yes. I
And
couldn't agree
why
more.
I'm so passionate about this work is because I really just want to work with women who want the awareness without the rock bottom. Like, why would anybody else
Yes.
have to go through that if they don't want to? And some people really want to have their own experiences. They want to experience it. I know I've had clients even tell me, like, that's not what I want to learn from you. If I have to hit rock bottom, then I'll hit rock bottom. That's not, if I have to have my own experiences, I'll have them. And I honor that as well.
Sure.
But what I'm saying is, you don't have to hit rock bottom. What you have to have is the experience I had when I hit rock bottom. And this is something I take people through during my programs and in my coaching, is these deep, deep, deep feelings of real radical understanding of themselves, where it feels like the air is kicked out of them for a second, and there's a second chance that comes through. And creating that experience, my programs and my coaching is really experiential in that sense, is just like knocking the air out of you so you can breathe it back in without having to create your whole life crumbling. We can do it over the course of a few weeks in a program. We can do it over the course of a few months, in a one-on-one coaching, or a year in one-on-one coaching, in conjunction with building your business and in conjunction with actually living a happy life. You can have these deep awarenesses that really shake you to your core and deepen your connection to yourself and your work without having to break everything.
100%. That's my most favorite, because I couldn't agree more that I don't think it's necessary to have the breakdown and sort of be at rock bottom. But also, much like you, I manifested the thing that I was most afraid of in getting divorced. And I think for me, it was, and I know that you've talked about it before, where it was a perfect example of accessing my power. I just used it in the wrong direction. So I think it's the same thing, where it's like, some of us go through these experiences so that we can help others avoid it. And for those that want to go through it, I totally respect that too, for the actual experience of it. But I think the reason why I find your experiences and your work and your programs and everything so deeply resonant on a cellular level for me, it is that emotional piece of it. And I think because I know you have experienced it, I am in alignment with you so that I can access the lesson. And I think that is the most incredible, courageous, brave thing that we can share with the world. And I would love to know, is there anything that you can remember how you started to, when you started to recover from that experience and you started to, build the momentum in the other direction, how did you start to trust yourself again? Because what I hear in that is like, I didn't have any value. I wasn't offering anything. I didn't create anything. To me, I hear like you didn't trust yourself in order to do those things or whatever it is. And a lot of our people struggle with this self-trust piece. Is there anything that you started to do to sort of build that confidence in yourself to trust yourself again?
So the first thing I want to address is the fact that, like, I didn't, how you said, even during the darkest times, you had the awareness that you were kind of building something. That awareness came in hindsight this was a long period for me of like sleeping in that car. It was much longer than it should have been. And the awareness came, but it didn't come right away.
Right.
So it's not like every bad thing that happened to me, I'm looking at this from an outside perspective going, oh yes, I'm very enlightened in this moment. I know exactly why this is happening. It was like, at first there was a lot of why is this happening to me?
Right.
And then there was a lot of like looking at it and trying to fix it and masculine energy my way out of it. And it shifted and it morphed. And one day I kind of had an experience where it really just felt like, what if one day this is a story? That's the thought.
Yep.
What if I live this the way that I want to tell the story?
That is a game changer. That's a game changer. I love that.
So that's really what started having me pull out the awarenesses while I was even still in the thick of it, was that question, and that holding myself to that standard. Like, who would I be in this situation if the intention was that one day I tell the story and I'm proud to tell it from this point forward. And it really did change everything for me. So I think what makes us not trust ourselves, if we're really honest, is that we break our word to ourselves. And a huge piece of the puzzle for me was having a word, having a word that is worth more than my signature on paper.
I love that.
Being the kind of person that doesn't say things unless I mean it. And not letting myself get away with, oh, well, nobody else knows, or I didn't tell anybody else I was going to do it. It doesn't matter. I'll do it tomorrow. Not letting myself get away with that it doesn't matter because nobody's watching.
Right.
And I think that is where we destroy our relationship with ourselves the most. I'm going to go tonight. I'm going to have an early night. Not this morning. I'm going to wake up early, snooze.
Right.
I'm on Monday. I'm going to start going to the gym next Monday.
Right.
I'm okay. I'm going to eat well, and I'm going to take care of my stuff. Okay. After this next fast food,
right.
I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it later. I'm going to do it, but I'm not going to do it now. I'm going to do it, but I'm not going to do it right. And I copped out of a lot of things that I had said I wanted to do. So how could I possibly trust myself? Any other human being on the planet that would have given me their word that often and broken it that often, I wouldn't have been able to trust.
Sure.
So the first thing that I realized is if I want to trust myself again, I've got to start being really responsible with what I tell myself and really follow through on it if I'm saying I'm going to do it. So I just became very aware of what I wanted to do and what I said I would do just to please people or because I thought it sounded good. Like I got really clear on what I was saying yes and no to because I knew if I said yes, I had to do it. And I was no longer going to be the kind of person who said things out of good intentions and no follow through. I was not going to be that person anymore. And that was a huge shift for me because I learned to say no to things. Like if I knew in my body I probably wasn't going to do it, I would say no, even if it meant disappointing people in the moment. I cared more about my word than I did about my feelings. And I don't want to disappoint you.
That is one of the most incredible pieces of your Femme Fatale program that I ever experienced, was really learning from you how emotional intelligence sets us free, really.
Yeah.
And I love that you were able to recognize how those boundaries for yourself, at the risk of disappointing other people, especially needing the courage to go your own way and do it your way. I think that that's a conversation that so many of us are not equipped to navigate on our own, which is why I think Femme Fatale is one of the most life-changing, pivotal programs I've ever experienced. And anyone I know that's in it will agree that it's that radical responsibility, but more than that, navigating tools and actionable ways that actually give you all the freedom that you are trying to get to, but you're trying to fit yourself in a way that, you're just protecting yourself. So
100%. The information in that program really saved my life. Like the piecing together this information for myself is what created me to be the Melanie Ann Layer that I am now, as opposed to the Melanie Ann Layer that got herself bankrupt, sleeping in a car and Googling how to make your ex-boyfriend cry on my HTC touch. Like the universe of a difference between that woman and the woman I am now is the journey to creating that Femme Fatale program and what it really means to be an emotionally intelligent human being and to put my standards, my word, and my vibe above my feelings, because my feelings will always be okay and I will always be okay, but not if I compromise who I am just to not feel sad and to not feel scared and to not feel disappointed and to not feel whatever feelings I'm afraid to feel. So I think that was really the biggest pivotal point for me, was to stop trying to pacify my feelings by being less than what I could be, and to really step into my greatness and be willing to feel whatever crazy stuff was going to come for me. And I found the confidence on the back end of constant courage.
Totally. And I think the difference is, I think there's a lot of talk between being courageous and being brave. And I think what really resonated for me about the way you explain things specifically is how being brave to me is like doing the thing with no regard for the fear. Like you're just going to do it and that's just what it is. But being courageous is really being aware that you are fearful, but you're going to be okay. And I think that having the tools in Femme Fatale and everything that you do is really helping that emotional intelligence really get into your cells and in your soul and in your spirit, that your work in the world is needed, but you have to manage yourself first. And that's where your courage comes in.
Yes, because the line, what it is it's the line between courage and confidence. So many people want to be confident.
Right.
They're like, they even come to me, they're like, how are you so confident even in the way you speak? And I'm like, I was courageous a bunch of times, sounded like a ninny a bunch of times. And then eventually it started sounding good. And then I could be confident that it was going to sound good because of how many times I was courageous.
Totally.
So when people, the line is the difference between being courageous or being brave and being fearless. So this is another word, like a buzzword that people are like, you've got to be fearless and and I'm like, if you're fearless, you're playing really small, because I am terrified. I'm terrified about most of what I'm doing in my life right now, because there's a new fear at every next level. If you really care, if you're really invested, the fear is part of it.
Of course.
So without the courage, well, then you only ever play in your comfort zone. So it's like the courage is, what's the next scary move? And then you're courageous about it. And eventually you don't need the courage anymore because you become good at it. And then the results make up the confidence. But there's only two ways you ever become confident, either because the results are in, or because you've got the emotional intelligence piece covered and you're like, even if I fail this, I'm going to be okay. But it's a journey to becoming confident, and it definitely doesn't happen in a moment. And it's definitely not just a thought that makes you confident. It's your relationship with who you are that creates your confidence. So if you don't have a word, if you don't trust yourself, if you constantly say you're going to do things and you see yourself sell yourself short over and over and over again, it's like the confidence won't come from you all of a sudden saying you're going to do it and believing it out of nowhere. You're going to have to be brave first and face yourself and be more than you've been, and acknowledge where you've fallen short and do the work and face the fears. And then eventually one day the results will come in. And in the meantime, you just got to be brave enough to know that if the results don't come in and you disappoint yourself again, whatever feelings that brings up, you're going to be okay and you're going to learn from them. And if you do that in the context of one day this is your story, it's worth it every single time. So what if you fail 10 times? That'll just be your story. So what if it was hard in the beginning? That'll just be your story. Because the truth is, many people wouldn't be interested with the story of the whole thing was perfect for me. It was effortless. I started this journey, I was perfect, and then I did the perfect thing and it was all perfect, and now my life's perfect and I'd love to tell you the story. Like, I don't want to hear that story. We all kind of grow together to hear, like, okay, this is where I learned, and this was where it was hard, and then this is somehow how it came together. So if you trust that no matter where you are, one day when you look back in hindsight, there will be a story there, a sequence of moments, of decisions, of thoughts that you will have had that will shape themselves into a story you can tell, that other people can get inspired by, and then you get to put it all together in one story and say, wow, it's almost like it was orchestrated divinely to happen this way, because what a beautiful story.
That's my favorite. And especially with, creatives. I personally think we're all creatives, but I think people that identify with creatives struggle a lot with that piece. Obviously, why I created the podcast and my programs, because I think it's, I think that there's this fear of being judged and this self-judgment and not feeling good enough and this worthiness thing and the pricing thing. I mean, there are just so many layers, but without having the awareness that it's all divine timing, it's all part of the story, and the tools to actually navigate that, and looking at, what else needs to change, or what are you going to do this time, and not making it mean so much. I think that's really why these conversations are so important, and why we do need the experiences of testing and tweaking and shifting and moving and getting our confidence muscle built up, because we couldn't just, like you said, like, it's not going to be perfect, and it's not going to be interesting. And that's not what we're here for. This human experience is for all the things. So I think it's really getting perspective on that too.
Absolutely.
And on the heels of that, so one of the things that I am super passionate about, which I have brought in, I think, from my love of photography and being a elementary school teacher, I love the creativity and imagination of kids. And I know that a big piece for you is how you want to tell a story and how you want to remember things. And you have done some pretty incredible things in your life, but I would love to know in this season, in this moment, is there one memory for you that you created for yourself that really stands out in this season of your life?
Oh my gosh, I have so many. Honestly, the way that I live my life now is as though every moment is an opportunity to make a memory.
I love it.
So my whole life is made of segmented memories that one day make a story. That's literally what I believe life is segmented memories that make a story.
That
But
is the most perfect way to say it. I love that. I love it. I couldn't agree more. But yes, go on.
I mean, like, I have with different people, with different moments in myself, in my, like, what kind of memory are you looking for? Like, what kind of, you don't have to be more specific for me to
Yeah.
pick one.
Yes. I think right now, is there a moment that you can recall where you found yourself feeling that sort of the butterflies in your belly, knowing that in the next moment, in the next decision, the next whatever it is, that everything was going to be brighter or shinier or just a little bit more emotional?
So something that really comes to my mind is like I have a little sister and a little brother, but there's something about my little sister. This is something I teach a lot in Femme Fatale, is like your ability to receive, be the person that people enjoy giving to the most in your life, and you're gonna have a lot of fun. In my world, my sister is the person that I just want to spoil rotten. And it's so funny because we found a video of when my sister came home from the hospital the other day, like an old family movie. And I am at this point 6 years old. My sister is like days old. And I'm holding her for the first time in my arms. And I'm like looking at her as though she's a miracle. And I just looked at her and I was like, when I grow up, I am going to spend all my money on you.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
I say this to her in the video. And it was so funny because I have all my life wanted to give her experiences that she would just be floored by. And not the Christmas that just passed, the one before, the business was going really well. And I just had this desire in my heart to do something that would change everything. Like, I wanted to do something really big. And what I decided to do is to give her for Christmas a globe with a pin. And she opened it on Christmas morning and I said, you decide where you want to go. You stick the pin in the globe wherever you want to go and I'll take you.
I can't even imagine that moment of both of you, for her and for you to witness that. That's like one of my most favorite stories you've ever told.
Like, honestly, I don't know why I thought to film it, because it's not really our style to film stuff. Like, I've done other really great things in my life for people. I have never thought to like shove a camera in their face, but like for this one, I actually propped my phone up and I filmed her reaction. And honestly, in my Alpha Femme group, I put the video there. She gave me permission to post it there. It's private. Like, I'm not sharing it all over the internet, but in my private group on Facebook, it's in there. It's the most watched video there is in there.
It's
Her
so
reaction,
amazing.
oh my gosh. Her reaction was like from the bottom of my soul, the most empowered, beautiful feeling I've ever felt, to be able to give someone that amount of joy. And we hadn't even taken the trip yet. I felt like I could fly.
Oh.
And the trip ended up being the trip of a lifetime. My business quadrupled between the time I gave her the trip and we actually took it. So it ended up being the trip of a lifetime. I ended up taking her in private jets and helicopters from one country to the other. We went to Monaco, France, Spain,
Oh my God.
Italy. Like, we went everywhere, flying there in private jets and helicopters and staying in 5-star hotels and eating luxury meals and taking, chartering boats for the day. And like, I've never, I took her on a trip that made both of our lives different. But the moment I gave it to her before we even took the trip changed my life.
I mean, that is just, I love that so much for so many millions of reasons. But the thing that resonated so much with me when I saw that and when I heard you first tell that story is because one of my core desires in my life is to create more memories and experiences with my kids and with my fiance and with our family. And it is exactly that moment that you speak of that has been the desire in all my adult life, to create a life where I can create memories with the people that I love. And to see you do that in that way was like, again, yes, this is possible. Like, it's just pure joy. The video is incredible. So I hope people go see it. It's amazing. I love it so much.
Thank you.
So I have 2 last questions before we go. And I would love to know, where do you find your greatest sense of creativity?
Wherever there's beauty.
That's amazing.
So I'm a very visual person.
Mm-hmm.
I would say sound and visuals are my 2 top senses. So if I'm in a place where I'm listening to a song that's really lighting me up, or even just like sounds, like when I'm in Hawaii or something like that, and I'm hearing like the waves, the ocean, the trees, the birds, like the sound and the sight. I am pictures are my love language. Like, I try to capture every beautiful thing I possibly can. Plus, I just bought myself a brand new camera. I'm so excited about it.
You did?
I know. I was so excited to tell you on this interview. I was like, I'm telling Carrie. She'd be so proud of me.
I am.
I bought myself a Canon.
Yep.
Like a DSLR, like really high quality with like a couple of lenses, and I'm just really excited. So hopefully you get to give me some feedback on the pictures. But I'm just so excited about just the beauty of things. So like right now I'm doing this podcast interview with you, and I'm actually propped up in the bedroom in the house that we rent. So we've been here since September. We're gonna be here until December 1st, which is the longest I've been sedentary in 6 years. And I'm looking out my window and it's snowing, and there's fresh footsteps for where the deer were a few hours ago, and it's just white, and there's just little trees, like I'm in the forest and I'm looking outside, and it would be very difficult for me to not be completely inspired with a view like this. I've got my warm coffee, and I've got the sound of you in my ears, and I've got the snow falling in my window, and there's no way that the creativity isn't going to flow like that. So for me, it's all about senses. And I really do suggest, whenever people are wondering, like, what do I need to do in order to be more creative? What sense is the most life-changing for you, or what lights you up the most? Is it, for some people it's food, like they love the taste or smell. Like maybe you want to be in a cafe, in a coffee shop with a croissant, like what do you want? What do you need? Is it a flavor? Is it a smell? Is it a sight? Is it a sound? Is it all of it? Like, light your senses up and then watch the creativity flow through.
So magic. I couldn't agree more. That's so much. I mean, so similar. I agree. Like when I see things like that, and music is also a big piece for me. When I see things that are beautiful, obviously photography, right? Like that's how I started my business. Is I was staring at, my son was born. I used to be a teacher. My son was born. He was a week old, and I was staring at his face one night, 2 a.m, and the moonlight was across his face, and I just welled up with tears. And I heard this overwhelming, I don't want to miss this. And I didn't even know photography was a career. I didn't know that was a thing. I had just got my master's in education. I just didn't want to miss it. I wanted to be a mom my whole life. And I just decided I liked taking pictures for fun. And I decided I wanted to help other families remember their moments too. And it was literally 2 a.m. I didn't know what I was doing. And I just started like Googling and looking up different things. At that time, there were like forums and things. It wasn't really Facebook.
Yeah.
And I taught myself about the business and I taught myself about the craft. And that's how it started for me. It was very much that I wanted to document moments. And
Wow.
my photography has always been very emotionally based, which is why I love that that's a connection for you, because I think that's really where creativity lives and
Yeah.
emotional pieces for sure. So I love
It's
that.
locked into our senses. I even have one client she's very like touching, like she'll get a massage, she'll get a breakthrough or a thought or whatever through in a massage, or when she's in the shower and
Yep.
she's like the warm water, like, oh, she'll get it then. So it's like whatever your senses are, just play around with that and something will come through.
I love it. Oh my gosh, this has been so fun. So my last question, I mean, I could sit here all day with you and ask you all the things, but I would love to know, what does being a confident creative mean to you?
Being a confident creative means to me that I know that throughout my entire life, I will always create things, whether they are the thing that makes me successful, the things that make me happy, the things that make me learn a lesson, the things that push me to grow. I'm always going to create things. And knowing that although the thing I create may not always be the be all and end all, it's always going to take me to the thing that could be the be all and end all. And being willing to allow myself to create everything that comes through me and learn from it, so that the best work that can come through me can come through without judgment. If some things that I've created aren't as good, I'm sure not all Picassos are hanging on walls. I'm sure that not all Beethoven's music has been played. I'm sure that some things didn't make the cut for no matter how creative and how inspiring people are in the world. Some of the work transcends time, and some of the work is there to make your work better. So a confident creative for me is someone who's willing to just create everything that comes through, knowing that not all of it is going to be the work you're remembered for, but all of it is part of the bigger piece, like the bigger puzzle, the bigger vision. So create it all, learn from it, remember it, but don't stop creating.
I love that. That is perfect. Oh my gosh. That is such a perfect way to end this. So I'm so grateful for sharing this time with you and for you sharing all your wisdom with us. It has been an absolute joy and pleasure. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for having me. This was fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And last but not least, where can people find you or connect with you, or what do you want to share with us about what's going on in your world for people to work with you, things like that?
So the best way to connect with me is social media, because that's where I live. I literally use my Facebook page like a diary. So if you're ever wondering what I'm up to and what life is like or what programs are running, just scroll through my Facebook, my personal page, just add me as a friend on Facebook and you'll be able to find for like master classes and more information about pricing and lessons and Facebook lives and more in-depth stuff. If you want to join my group on Facebook, which is the Alpha Femme group, it's not a group where you go in to sell your own stuff, or where there's a lot of groups online where it's like it's a free for all, everybody can post. This is really a hub where you come in to learn more about what I'm offering. So if you feel aligned with that, that's fantastic. I also have a business page you can follow. But my Instagram is actually starting to take a little bit more space now in the world, because I've started uploading voice riffs, like little clips on every one of my posts that you can listen. So you can read about what I'm talking about. You can listen to me talk about them. Like, it's just becoming more and more full. So I also have Alpha Femme on Instagram now. That's becoming more and more. So those are the two best places to connect with me. And then I know we talked a lot about Femme Fatale in this program, or in this conversation, and that starts in February. So if you want to hear more about that, you can always reach out. But I've created a new program that starts on December 2nd that's called Alpha to Alpha. And it's all about emotional intelligence, courage, confidence in the workplace, in your purpose. When it comes to money, when it comes to your craft, when it comes to deciding what you're going to do with your life, your career, like how to really tap into your emotional intelligence in that particular sphere. So it just kind of depends where you want to work on your emotional intelligence, whether it's in the workplace or at home with your family, or a mix of both, because I have a bundle for both. So those would probably be the things based on our conversation that I feel would align the most. But in my Alpha Femme group, you could find out all the other things I have to offer as well.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I want every single person, every woman I know to take Femme Fatale. It's so good. And I'm so excited for Alpha to Alpha. Like I'm just so grateful that your work is in the world and you're in my world. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
That means so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, my friend, I will talk to you soon, and we'll put all that stuff in the show notes, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Confident Creative podcast. I am so psyched that I got to have this conversation, and I loved sharing it with you. If you enjoyed it, I would love for you to hit subscribe to the podcast, and it would mean the absolute world to me if you could go ahead and leave a review about what your biggest takeaway was. If you want to come over and continue the conversation, join us in my free Facebook community, the Confident Creative Collective. We'll be diving into all different conversations from the podcast, as well as some additional trainings and some inside scoop. If you want to find me on the interwebs, you can find me on Instagram at Keri.Gavin, KERI.GAVIN, or you can find me on Facebook. Thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate you, and thank you for sharing this with anyone you think it resonates with. See you on the next episode.